Welcome the listeners of KSCO and KSCO.com to the Will and Willie Show. Please let Willie Brown through the crowd. Great to see a crowd here tonight.
A politician trying to make his way through a crowd. This could be an hour.
My liege, your chair waits.
I was at the other hotel. On the hill.
Yeah, they were supposed to tell anybody who showed up to come up here.
They're telling people.
Good. Come on up.
I told them just wait.
Just wait for Willie Brown. Okay, so I'm Paul Wells.
Hey, brother.
I'm Paul Wells.
I'm Will Durst.
And I'm Willie the Brown.
So, obviously, there isn't...
And would somebody please bring me a drink?
What do you want? That's my water.
Sorry, Lee, you don't have to do that. Not the red shoes.
Hey, I rented from you.
I know. That's why I don't want you walking in them.
Now, we're here at the lovely Orchard Hotel. What was the problem? Is it another Orchard Hotel?
The Orchard Garden
Same
Hotel.
people owns two hotels. They own this one, and they own the one down the hill. The one down the hill is across from my watering hole called Lace and Charles. And I, of course, said, hey, meet me at Lace and Charles for a drink. And a few people did. And then I said, no, 5 minutes up, we got to walk across the street. We walked across the street, and the people over there said, it's up the hill. And I walked up the hill. Can you imagine if something had happened to me on the streets?
That's
All of
not
you
an
would
easy
have
hill
missed my
either.
presence.
Well, I want to tell a story about Governor Schwarzenegger when he was Governor Schwarzenegger. And we were doing our show as the morning show for the Progressive Talk station in San Francisco. And we were doing it from Sacramento. And our program director decided he wanted a personal tour guided by Willie Brown through the chambers. And as that's going on, Governor Schwarzenegger calls the show. I mean, he could have walked down from his office, but he called the show. So Willie wasn't there. So it was just me and Will talking to Governor Schwarzenegger.
Back up for a second.
Did you tell him we're here?
It's a walk up. We were above the governor.
Okay. I think one of the best stories of your tenure, which they changed the laws to end, as Speaker of the Assembly, was one of my favorites is what happened to someone who voted against you. You wind up with a janitor's closet for an office?
No, not that big.
The cupboard under the stairs.
Yeah, janitor is an important person. You know, there's no question about it. And individuals who ran afoul of the law, and I was essentially the law. But I have some ice, please.
I am the law.
They would find themselves demoted, removed from the Capitol, assigned to some place where they got no notices of anything that was occurring in the state. It was a very democratic system, and it worked very effectively.
So then they put in term limits, and we had the fortunate happenstance of having you decide to run for mayor instead.
Well, actually, the people of the state of California put in term limits. In 1990, the people of the state of California proceeded. Here, no, I'm drinking vodka.
He's drinking vodka. I love red wine.
Vodka.
Thank you very much.
And they put in term limits, and term limits have taken off. They have term limits in San Francisco. They have term limits everywhere. The presidency is limited in terms. Obviously, for some people holding that job, term is too long if it's after swearing in. Yeah, put it there. I'll get to it. And it's term limits went in place in 1990. And I have one of the things you collect in the world of politics, memorabilia. I have a letter from Ronald Reagan who said he was voting against term limits. He said, you understand that had they not had term limits on the presidency, I could have won again. And he was right. He was a very popular figure at that time, and Bush 1 replaced him, if you recall, in '88 when I was the chair of the Jackson campaign. And our candidate, you remember who our candidate was? Dukakis. We didn't win.
Dukakis, which turned out to be a Greek from Mondale.
But at any rate, the voters, in their wisdom, decided on term limits, and a fellow named Pete Shabaram from Los Angeles, who had been a member of the Assembly, a terrible member of the Assembly, I must add, and had been unelected. He became a supervisor in L.A. County. He was so bitter, though, with us in the Capitol that he really went forward with the idea of term limits, and most voters think it's a great idea. Once you have somebody who has learned the skills of navigating, who have learned how to read the rules and things of that nature, replace them with an auto mechanic. That auto mechanic would do better. That's what term limits provided, and that's what they went forward with term limits, and we ended up being ousted after 6 years. I could no longer serve more than 6 years, and nor could anybody else. And of course, we all prayed for Pete Shabaram, and we all went to his funeral just to make sure that he was in that casket. And he died. He died, and we all had excuses though for his death. Because he had been the bad guy. In term limits, has wrecked the state. Many talented people are no longer holding public office because of term limits. John Burton is one of them. San Francisco was incredibly powerful in the state, even though we had only a few representatives, because we were the people who knew how to maneuver. Term limits took all of that out. And since then, we've been living with new people, equally talented, but not experienced enough to really do the job. And that's term limits. We have term limits for mayor of San Francisco. I actually disliked term limits intensely. I loved being speaker. I would still be speaker today if there had not been term limits.
Speaker for life.
Even when the Republicans took over the House, I still won the speakership. We orchestrated the process by which we did that. As a matter of fact,
I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back when the Republicans had a majority in the Assembly, and they still voted you in as Speaker.
Well, that's typical Republicans, you know. They go for talent.
Let's go to either or. I'll let you gentlemen decide which we want first, Manafort or Cohn.
I am concerned because I think that the public is joyful in many places tonight because Trump has really had a very bad week. I mean, when your lawyer tells on you, records, and your superstar reality show host writes a book and backs the book up with recordings. I mean, what the hell must have been mad with that cat? Why wouldn't he be providing what you get at the airport to find the medal on everybody coming in and out? I mean, any of that. And so they really have done. But we've got to worry if Pence becomes the president. That's a bad.
Yeah, he's evil. He's not crazy.
That is correct. Trump is bombastic, doesn't believe in anything, doesn't remember from the subject matter of the sentence to the end of the sentence. He changes, he lies, and he doesn't, he passes lie detector test because he believes it's the truth. He's really absolutely perfect to beat in 2020 with either Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren or Cory Booker or Cuomo or Garcetti or Newsom. We can beat Trump with almost anybody in 2020. I'm not sure we can do the same thing to Pence. And so therefore, I am praying for Trump's health. I want him around till 2020, period. Oh.
But when you're, the corruption is so large that you could see it from space. Everybody, I mean, she was talking about Omarosa, the Frankenstein monster that he created. It's almost like the student became better than the teacher at this, because she studied at his foot. She knows the throwaway character assassination. It's almost like, pluck the pebble from my hamgrass. Ow! Put the knife down,
Well, you notice, though, that they have not challenged anything she said. Nobody in the White House, the president or anybody else, has said she is misrepresenting any period. Everything she lays out there obviously has some credibility. And if somebody's sitting around, with 300 tapes, you'd be concerned about...
Oh, the other staffers. Yeah. What did I say? What did I laugh at?
Can you imagine if you've been working in the White House and you go out for a job? You want to be a doorman here at the Orchard Hotel. And you'd have to ask you, you say you haven't done anything since 2016? No, I went on a sabbatical. Because you can't put in that you worked at the White House. They're not going to hire you here if you worked at the White House.
Well, they won't let you near any of the money. Subway
that has a thing I saw just down the hill that said, help wanted, except for. So, working at the White House is not a good deal anymore. And I'm guessing that people are going to be bailing out left and right. I just hope they stick around to 2020 when we can really beat him.
Well, 2018 is coming up, 75 days or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
75 days, and the Democrats taking the House is important. Of course, the Democrats' dream.
For Democrats.
Well, a blue wave might be a blue tsunami. But if they don't, I'm going to look into moving to New Zealand.
Well,
I got the Canadian immigration website bookmarked on my computer.
Okay, well, you're not. No. Well, stay out there in the sunset where you live.
We do live in a bubble.
You're not going to have to go anywhere. You're not going to have to go anywhere. Believe me, this nation is going to be, I think, recaptured, particularly if we can keep the Justice Department indicting people. They've indicted the guy that first endorsed, the congressman that first endorsed
Duncan Hunter.
Trump. No, he's number 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've nailed
Chris,
2 of them. So
Collins.
Chris
Yeah.
Collins. Yeah. They've nailed 2 so far, and they obviously got a lot more to go. And believe me, they keep that up, and those seats are going to flip over. I'm sorry they nailed Duncan, however. I wish it had been on the 25th of September, because then they can't fill the vacancy. He would be like a dead man. And, we'd beat him easier as a dead man. Now he can pull out, and they can put some other stuff in.
Oh, they can?
Yes, they can. They can fill the vacancy till about the middle of September. The state party.
If he pulls out. He claims he's not going to pull out. Of course, Chris Collins said the same thing.
Everybody says that, till you make a deal.
Yeah.
I'll pull out. No time. You got me. I'm out. And that's what, in his case, he better say first, no time for his old lady. Otherwise, she might turn witness against him. She may be the verifier. And he's charged only with using campaign money for personal purposes, paying for his dog to fly to Italy. Are you aware of that?
No.
$600.
Rabbit? His rabbit?
A rabbit? That's even worse. Anybody that has a pet rabbit, you're really out to lunch. With a pet rabbit? Are you kidding me? What kind of guy is that? In San Diego?
Well, things. It doesn't matter to Trump's base. I mean, they are his zombies. They will be. Of course, we had Giuliani on Sunday say the truth is not the truth, and then I saw some guy today saying in response to Cohen announcing that there was a federal campaigner who was an unindicted co-conspirator because they couldn't mention the name, so they just said he was a federal candidate. Yeah,
Candidate
he was
for office.
For office. And somebody on I don't know if it was Fox or MSNBC said, well, crimes aren't crimes. So you got truth isn't the truth, and crimes aren't crimes.
Don't forget, don't believe
What you see or read. Yeah.
No, but I prefer, frankly, and I use this phrase occasionally when it's necessary. I loved Kellyanne Conway when she said alternative facts. Nothing pleases me more than explaining alternative facts. That is a great line.
She is scary.
What?
She is scary.
Yes.
Yeah, but she's harmless. Ultimately.
She looks like she was assembled out of discarded IKEA parts. and then flash frozen for optimum brittleness.
She looks like the
sprayed,
Crypt Keeper
and then sprayed.
puppet. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're about a third of the way in the show. God, an hour goes so fast. And I want to bring our special guest in, the editor of the editorial page for the San Francisco Chronicle. Jon Diaz, come on over. Join the show. John got in a little hot water for not getting in line with the group editorial, and he had his reasons. We'll let you explain them. By the way, I want to again welcome the listeners of KSCO and KSCO.com, and people on the San Francisco Chronicle page. I don't think we want to close that. That's our standing room only people back there. There's a few seats up front. And also, ride and coach. Also, let's hear it again for the Orchard Hotels. You know that the
beautiful space.
First
Beautiful.
LEED certified hotels in San Francisco, by the way.
We've never had this many people, have we?
No.
We've had a bigger room with more people.
No, bigger room with
We've
fewer
never had
people.
a room with this many people.
This is impressive.
This is good.
Where did you guys think you were going tonight? I can't believe.
How many people came for the free food from Italian Homemade? Just
They were going to go to the other orchard for dinner.
Yeah, Italian Homemade makes their own pasta. The one on Union Street provided the food. Let's hear it for them, by the way. Yay. I have a whole lot of people to thank. There's, celebrities in the audience.
You always have to brag a little bit. But the only other time I've ever been to this hotel, I got invited to dinner one night by Danielle Steele here when it first opened. She needed material for a new book.
Did you meet her in a room?
Yeah, did you read her?
I love Herb Cain, who wrote for the Chronicle, and he was a Pulitzer Prize winner.
He was
He
the
one time-
Chronicle, Willie.
What?
He was the Chronicle. Herb Cain was the
He
Chronicle.
said one time, and now that he has passed on, I can quote him. He said, it takes longer to read Danielle's books than it does for her to write them.
So, John, you did not run an editorial like 350 papers did, and you wound up on Colbert as a result of that. You want to talk a little bit about what's happened since that past Thursday?
Well, we haven't had a problem with letters to the editor since then. Let's put it that way. Here was the situation, Paul. The Boston Globe put out a call for newspapers across the country to have a united front and have editorials on this specific day, a week ago, last Thursday, talking about the threat of the Trump administration to press freedom. Couple things, and we decided not to do it. And you would have thought from some of the reaction that we had just endorsed the Trump-Putin ticket for 2020. But
you didn't.
No, not yet. But here was the thinking. No question, if you read our editorials over the last, since January 20th, 2017, when Trump was inaugurated, if you read my Sunday column, this has been a recurring subject. We take second to none to any newspaper in the country for calling out President Trump on these issues. I just don't like the idea of newspapers collaborating on the editorial pages for this reason. I think there's a lot of confusion out there in the public as to what the role of the editorial page is versus the news side. And I think when people see the simplistic headline of newspapers across the country banned against Trump, I think it plays into that narrative and into his narrative, but also plays into the misconception that somehow the press is not doing its job, that they're out to get him.
And a monolithic presence.
Yeah, that was really my concern. I mean, and believe me, if you even look since last Thursday, we've had a number of editorials critical of President Trump on a number of these issues. So it's not as if we were in any way cowering at the position or worried about a tweet from Donald Trump, because frankly, there's nothing better for a journalist or a politician, especially in this area, than to be called out by Donald Trump, ideally even with a nickname. Who knows what they would have come up with. But that was our thinking, and we certainly got some attention for it. A lot of readers were initially very, very upset about it. At the same time, after my Sunday column explained our reasons, it went from 90-10 against us to probably 60-40. So we had some influence.
It was still against, though.
Oh, no question, no question. And
well, let me ask you this, John. How did you do on Colbert? Did he actually say your name?
No, he did say my name. I was not on the show myself, but my words there were up on the screen. I had no idea it was coming. I'll tell you, Willie, when you wake up in the morning and you have text from people saying, "Hey, I saw your mention on Colbert last night," I'm thinking, "Uh-oh." But it actually was a pretty as he pointed out, I correctly not only predicted what Donald Trump would tweet, but actually some of the actual words like collusion and fake news, which I'm not a prophet. I think it was not impossible to anticipate.
Well, also, he's turned into the Rain Man. Everything, no collusion, no collusion. Doesn't matter what you ask, no collusion. Sad.
Well, John, John, I want you to comment on I have suggested that people will stop paying attention to Trump. He's the lead on everybody's news cycle, period. He's the first 10 or 12 minutes is a reference to Trump or somebody connected to Trump. He loves that. We politicians lived for the day that at all times, good or bad, we were mentioned. Because most people don't really pay a whole lot of attention to why we were mentioned. They just kind of remember the name. And I have suggested in my column, in your paper, that
our paper, Willie.
The people.
Remember, you're on our side now.
That's right. That the people should really just simply the news organization should cover every aspect of government as it is their responsibility and duty to do, but they should just ignore Trump. Do not print anything. He would go crazy if he didn't
as opposed to how he is now. Yeah.
Well, he's functional crazy now, but he would start jumping up and down. I can see him now. He would go looking for Jon Diaz physically to do something about Jon Diaz, not mentioning him. He would become even more outrageous in all of his antics and what have you. And, we would see him. But I don't want to really press him till about, July of 2020, right after the convention. That's when I want him to so become unhinged, as she says, that he can't really function. I want people to have to assist him to the bathroom. Otherwise, he would perform in his own pants. That's the kind of person that I think he could be driven to. But let me ask you, would it have been more appropriate if the Boston Globe had simply said, on this day, everybody ought to write whatever they want to say, similar to what they've been writing, like you have been for all these years? Let's just all write on the same day something about Trump. We don't care what it is. Let's just all write about him. And knowing that everybody is going to write something negative, the goal would be achieved, wouldn't it?
It's an interesting thought. By the way, Willie Brown, I have to wonder how long you've been waiting to ask me questions after all these years of our editorial board. Here's the thing about, and you raise a point that a number of readers have raised. Why don't we just ignore his tweets? Why don't we just, not play into his hands?
You see, the readers are following my recommendation.
But here's the thing. When you look at the tweets, even in the last 24 hours, where he's not just disrespecting truth and the news media, and certainly that bothers me, the way he's delegitimizing that, but the racism, the misogyny, the disregard for the judicial system, where he puts his own Justice Department in quotes. I mean, I think to ignore that is really to ignore the scale of the danger that our democracy is facing from this administration.
Except that the dialogue could be about the Justice Department. Just don't mention Trump. Nothing disturbed me more when I served in public office that my name wasn't in the column. My name wasn't in the item. My name wasn't on the front page. I didn't care what you said. Just say Willie. And that was pleasing. Trump is the personification of the desire to always be in the story. I think the story could be done without ever mentioning Trump's name. As a matter of fact, it's kind of amazing. Most of you probably watch MSNBC or CNN. I watch to see what Fox is doing. It's as if Fox wasn't around this week. They have not covered any of what has occurred. Period.
They were covering his speech in West Virginia live while
as a matter of fact,
were coming.
The housekeeper told me that he watched that speech for, I think, 45 minutes, without realizing that there was a real world out there, which is not unusual.
2 minor staffers went to jail. Not his campaign manager or his personal lawyer. Yeah. Just they underplay it, and the base eats it up. The base doesn't care. It's they will vote for Trump. I think there might be. Someone told me that they know somebody who lives in Georgia and said if Trump gets impeached, they're willing to go to civil war.
Well, that's probably true. Those people are totally and completely nuts. No.
Slavery wasn't enough.
I watched a little bit of that speech, anticipating that he was going to go off about the Cohen and Manafort convictions. The crowd actually was chanting, I'm not making this up, lock her up.
Well, that's because
Yesterday,
they still think Hillary is running. They don't know the election's over.
I was on KSCO the same day that the editorial was coming down. I did a solo show, and I wanted to ask people, and I did. But some of them got like, you're deranged. Just ask them, what would Trump have to do for you to, and even just question that he doesn't always tell the truth, or just question him. And some people, you're asking me to turn on Trump, and it's like, no. I'm asking you what would have to happen for you to have a connection and to think something through and go, well, wait a minute, that's over the line. That's a bit too much.
There is no line. He could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue.
Wait. With all due respect, you know how many politicians have been fooling voters all these years?
Politician, consummate politician.
I would tell you that I'm guessing that half of the people who hold public office you wouldn't hire. And I've always said, unless you will hire them, don't vote for them. Why would you vote for somebody you wouldn't hire? And most of the politicians in this country. So the people who elected them are more like Trump than they are like normal people. I mean, you got to understand, Paul, that's the real world.
I know.
No, San Francisco is the real world.
We live in our blue bubble.
We're just trying to pull everybody into our bubble.
Now, wait a minute, Lee. You got to be very careful because San Francisco is the other side of the world, and in many cases, I always say what the Board of Supervisors did when they ousted London Breed as the acting mayor. That was exactly the kind of insanity that Trump displays on a daily basis. And that speech that one of those people made about how London Breed is the handmaiden of white billionaires, and then she turns around and votes for a white billionaire. So
That's
we
when I
have a
walked out of the
city.
room.
Yeah, we have a city that when the voters do participation, you can't. Yeah, we are on all universal issues, whether it's climate control, whether it's the immigrant rights and what have you. We posture ourselves in that way. But we were a town in which Asians didn't have a voice politically until the late 70s when Phil Burton made that possible. We had to sue to get an opportunity for black folk to become firemen and policemen in this town. This town is not beyond needing to be attended to on the question of race and gender, period. And so we
Only
and just because we all look like Bernie Sanders, we don't have the same commitment that we literally don't give up the opportunity for power. Power is a magical ingredient. It's better than any of the dope that people. And we in San Francisco really love power.
Will
We really love
is
power.
disputing Willie Brown. Will Durst is saying, wait a minute.
What?
He was disputing that.
I don't know.
It's like,
There was a time.
there was a time.
Yeah. The late 80s. Oh.
No. The late 60s.
Oh, yeah?
Pick your time. Jon Diaz of the San Francisco Chronicle is with us on the Will and Willie Show, and we're live on KSCO, KSCO.com, Facebook Live, both on the Will and Willie page and on the Chronicle page. Will be in the podcast.
I have a question for John. Mr. Diaz, the Chronicle, and I don't know if it's because
here we go.
I don't know if it's because of Trump or what have you, but you guys are one of the few newspapers in the country that are actually making money. And was that because you got into digital early or
SF
what?
Gate and all that?
Yeah.
No, it's because in July of 08, they hired me as a
Your column started. But besides that, John,
Well, there's really one reason that we've actually been able to get to this place, and that's that the Hearst Corporation, the New York company that owns us, almost everything else they touch has turned to gold except the Chronicle. We went through some really, really tough times where publicly they acknowledged they were losing $1 million a week with the Chronicle.
A week?
A week.
Yeah,
$1 million.
$1 million a year.
And certainly a lot of things have happened. We've had cutbacks. We've had a lot of entrepreneurial things from our sales staff where they do a lot of things online that are making money. Some really tough decisions and some innovative management. And the Chronicle is making a very modest amount of money, but we're one of the few papers in the country that major papers it is.
Well, you have some of the best writers.
I agree.
yes.
And of
And then
course,
you have-
And the best sports section in the country.
oh yeah.
And it's still the sporting green.
Well, the Chronicle never ceased to be an important print instrument. Even in this world of technology, the Chronicle still, you still go to the Chronicle to find out what's happening, because the emphasis on what actually happens on the streets of San Francisco, in the neighborhoods of San Francisco, in the restaurants, in the bars, in the theaters, or in the cultural centers, in the schools, that's still an issue. You can't get that information, from any of the blogs. You really do have to go, and the Chronicle is obviously committed to that. And the real working people at the Chronicle, those reporters that go out and capture, they really do have a commitment for accuracy. That's a problem with my column. You know, they could call up and say, I keep saying, wait a minute, I write a column, I'm not a reporter. But they absolutely insist upon accuracy, even down to the spelling of people's names. I mean, it's amazing.
Which isn't cared about at all on the internet. You know, it doesn't matter how to spell anything.
But the Chronicle is really committed. And that's why it's incredible that the Hearst Corporation would tolerate the kind of losses that the Chronicle experienced, because obviously that was a commitment to true journalism, true newspapers, true conveying of information, and the management operation. Or I go over Chronicle occasionally, and they now telecast. They now do digital
podcast.
Yeah, they do the podcast. I go over there, and it's amazing how incredible. It's almost like being here, where people there really exchange views and argue with each other and talk to each other and make sure that there is a public awareness is what the Chronicle wants to achieve. And when they put me on in, I guess, July 1st, Sunday in July in 2008, I figured I absolutely would last till Obama was sworn in. That was
10 years ago.
That's more than 500 columns ago. Can you imagine? How could that be? I mean, but that's the Chronicle. The whole business of trying to make sure that people are reasonably well informed. And so when John took the position he took, I took a different position. I said, you know, what a boycott Trump. And I do really believe that literally news organization in this country could do their job and never mention his name. And if you don't do his name, I'm telling you, he will flip out beyond his current level of being unhinged. And
what if he didn't have that platform in the back of the rally to point to and say how despicable those people and dishonest those people are, and they're the enemy of the people and all that? What if they weren't there?
Well, I went back to watch that speech in part that he just did in Virginia.
West Virginia.
Charleston,
wherever
West
he was.
Virginia. Because clean coal, you know.
I got to tell you,
Oxymoron, but clean coal.
Yeah,
that
clean
was
coal is
not-
a guest worker.
that performance was not the Trump that I saw before. He really has already begun to deteriorate. I mean, it's just, it's awful. I feel sorry for him, you know. And his wife just said she's off to Africa without him.
I've never hated Trump. I understand him a little bit because I'm a kid from the Bronx and he's a kid from Queens. And yes, there is a Manhattan elite. And he never was welcomed by that. Didn't matter how much money or his dad had. His dad said, we're living in Queens, I don't care. And so he always had a thing going in his mind that he wanted revenge on those people, just like Obama. When President Obama, what is the press dinner that they have?
Yeah,
Where
the Washington Correspondents' Dinner.
Where
Obama
Trump was in
made
the
fun of
audience, and Obama did Trump jokes. And as we know from what's gone on in the government, Trump is a very vengeful person because he has removed the security clearance from people who have said things about him.
He
that
took
didn't
my
like.
security clearance.
He took yours.
Yeah.
He wanted to take Obama's.
He took mine. He didn't realize that I'd written my own.
There were some funny jokes that Obama did.
On the Will and Willie Show, we like to do a Q&A for the last part of the show. I see Johnny Steele is in the audience. I'd love for you to come up and ask a question. Michael Zwerling, MZ from KSCO, you asked a question the last time. Come on up and be part of the show because we aren't taking callers, although I'm sure there's somebody who wants to, say how deranged I am.
You trust Johnny with a mic?
Johnny Steele, ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen.
my.
Yay! Is that thing on?
The mic's not on, so it's safe.
5.
Hello, I'm here representing the
Me Too movement. I wonder why there are no women on the panel.
Because we invited to and they didn't come. Yes.
What did I say? Don't steal the mic.
They declined politely.
What's
Well,
the future?
one with
What's
a
the
broken
future of
ankle?
newspapers?
Well, I think there's no question that we are moving to a digital era, whether we like it or not. I have a 28-year-old daughter, and I think the only time she reads a newspaper is when she's home and it's on the breakfast table. At the same time, she's very engaged in the news, has a lot of different bookmarks on her browser, and I think, whether we like it or not. I mean, I love the printed page. The sort of the whole tactile feel of holding the paper in the morning.
That's enough.
But that's not our future. So I see a time down the road.
But haven't that call, the Cassandra call? I mean, it was movies where movies would never make it. Movies would destroy radio, and then television will destroy movies, and then digital will destroy books, and it never really panned out. There was always kind of you might price yourself out. What is the Chronicle today? $2?
Daily it is, yes.
Jesus.
And
I don't carry that many quarters with me.
Well, and it's interesting because in some ways, really, what has hurt our paper since Al Gore invented the internet, damn him, is not so much that we're losing readers because more people read our content than ever before. The problem is we're not paying for it. And really our business model evaporated, especially with advertising, where it used to be if you were a car dealer, if you were Macy's, and you wanted to reach a certain demographic in the Bay Area, you had to advertise in the Chronicle. Whereas now they're advertising right to you in your cell phone. They know what you bought last week. They anticipate what you're probably going to buy next week. That's really been the damage. So we're moving toward the idea of getting people to pay for it. Digital subscriptions.
But we do
really
SF Gate. Tell them about SF Gate.
Well, we have two websites. We have SF Gate, our free site, and then sfchronicle.com, which is a subscription site. And we're certainly trying to incentivize not only people who are not reading us regularly to digitally subscribe, but also our print readers, get them to interact online as well.
Are you encapsulating your good writers or the long stories on the paid site?
Yeah, the paid site is where you basically get everything plus that is in the San Francisco Chronicle, whereas on SF Gate you get more breaking news, and then they have their own aggregators who go out there who look for the latest great cat video and other important stories that you miss if you're just watching Trump's Twitter feed.
Which
And
is
believe me,
endlessly fascinating.
In the world of electronics, I get kids and grandkids, and none of them read anything anymore. They're all, and they're angry with me because they just post one after another. Everywhere post. I'm going down the street, post. I'm going to do everything is post, and I of course resist all of that. And that's an invasion of my privacy, and I don't want that. I only get in trouble with all that posting. And then people take photographs of everybody. I've never had to explain to my lady friends so many.
It's a good shot of you.
Why don't you wait for my makeup? I mean, I don't
Makeup.
I need makeup, but I'm telling you, the whole business, and I think the Chronicle, John, is adjusting to that in terms of how the Chronicle does its operation.
Oh yeah, and the whole idea of scoops has been redefined. It used to be if we had an exclusive story, we would try and hold it until after the 11 o'clock news, so that people would have to read it in the morning. Whereas now people measure scoops in seconds. Like, we had the Sporting Green had this story 30 seconds before ESPN, so we had it first. It's really changed the business, and it's changed the mindset of the business. But I think if we want to maintain our brand in this world, that we still have to maintain our values of accuracy and fairness and distinguish ourselves from people just throwing stuff out there online.
And I represent the only column you can get your name in.
Wait a minute.
Who do we send our little one-liners to?
Me?
Oh, okay.
What are you talking about? Who do you send your one-liners to?
Let's get
I
some more
love
questions.
the fact that with some regularity, when I'm perusing the streets, I was on the streets today. I had to do a Comcast show thing over they're doing a thing on civil rights. They want to know the voices of the civil rights movement over the 30, 40, 50 years that they wanted to cover that. And so I had to do a piece of that. And then that gave me 30 to 35 minutes to just wander around Union Square. Yeah, and I do that because I want to see if anybody recognizes me.
We have questions, and we'll let anybody ask a question, even Lee Housekeeper,
It
on
was
the Will and
fun.
Willie Show, live from the Orchard Hotel. Let's hear it for the Orchard Hotels again.
The lovely
Beautiful
Orchard
locations.
Question for Jon Diaz, and I expect Willie would wait all of you, is
Do the whole name, Willie Brown.
Willie held the...
No. Forget the L. Forget that. Just Willie Brown.
Willie Brown.
Herb corned me
Repeat
with
after
one
me.
name
Willie
to
Brown.
distinguish me from Mays, McCovey, and Kirkland.
This is a Christmas column.
Willie Brown.
That's right. It was just Willie Brown. One word.
Willie Brown.
You don't even have to capitalize the B.
Your question?
Oh, my question.
Yes.
Two things I noticed. One is that Nancy Pelosi has sent out an edict to all Congress personnel to please do not mention the I word. It's going to be bad for us. At the same time,
What's the I
Breitbart
word?
News is saying
What's the I word?
Democrats are going to we're going to win back everything because they're going for impeachment. All the mailers I get for signing up for one Republican thing is saying, give us money because they're going to go after impeaching. It's all about impeachment. Is this an issue you can put back in the bottle? Is this going to be the issue?
Oh, I think the Democrats are playing it smart, Nancy Pelosi et al., by not making it a front and center issue. But make no mistake, impeachment of Donald Trump is going to be the issue in the November election. And thank you, Lee, as my publicist. That'll also be the subject of my column this Sunday in the Chronicle. I know our Sunday paper costs a little more than $2, but it'd be worth it.
I get the e-paper,
And you
but on Sunday I get
Willie's
the real
column.
paper.
The only downside for all of you out here who love Willie Brown and love his political analysis, with the statement that he has made tonight, you're not going to see the word Donald Trump in his column from here to eternity, right, Willie?
No.
Oh, it's you want the rest
like
of the
everybody
media
else.
not to miss
I
it.
want you to read my column.
But right now you're getting it for free. Hey, and free food from Italian Homemade. Was it good?
But
Wonderful.
on Lee's question about impeachment, I think Nancy is right. I'm telling you, we need to keep this guy around to look. We ought to impeach him in the House and then not fire him in the Senate. That would be perfect. He would be damaged merchandise beyond belief.
Well, that's also the most likely scenario, given that even if the Democrats take the House, it takes a two-thirds vote in the Senate. So even if the Democrats were to get control of the Senate, I can't see him being convicted. But I'll say this, if the Democrats take the House, everything changes. Because even more important than impeachment is all these investigative committees that are toothless right now are going to be Democratic controlled, and we're going to learn a whole lot more about what's going on, not only in the Russian investigation, but in the EPA and all these other places where we have all these evildoers.
Which in reality is far more important than even the Russian investigation.
Lock him up.
Having a
Lock
planet.
him up.
We have another question for Will and Willie.
Gentlemen, and impeachment does not solve the problem. Congress holds the problem and the keys.
Drain the swamp.
I'm here to do that. Colleen Fernald, I was on your ballot for U.S. Senate in the last 3 primaries, and I'm the person back in the good old days of Progressive Talk Radio was talking to Will Durst saying, why don't you have a radio show? Although I thought you should have a couple X chromosomes along with them. What do you guys think? Anyway, so someone said one of your favorite people, Kamala Harris, is a constitutionalist, and I'm saying, how is she upholding her oath that only Congress is supposed to declare war? Doesn't matter which party's in charge. Only Congress, or Congress is supposed to, like California and every city and state, pay the debts. How's that working for us? And so I think that what we're fighting over are symptoms of the problems. We get back to the Constitution and get everyone to uphold their oath. It doesn't matter who's president, right? So, Mr. Brown, can you address that as a lawyer who knows something about the Constitution? And are you going to get your gal to, run for office based on upholding that oath in every single way possible?
No, I can't address it.
I think it's a winning strategy. Do you think so?
I don't know.
Go ahead, Will, if you wish.
Please.
I agree with the strategy of taking the House in November and also telling all the Republicans, make sure you get those mailers out to remind them that Democrats vote on Tuesday and Republicans vote on Wednesday.
An actual mailer.
Well, it is, it's really important, every observation you make. But in this democracy, trying to persuade people to follow the highly intellectual analysis and roadmap that you present is impossible. Voters are really fairly limited as to what you can get them to do on any given occasion. And I would be far more committed to making sure that Nancy Pelosi gets the speakership back and then trust Nancy to execute.
Well, use your showtime to talk less, not talking about Trump, and more time talking about every person who wants your vote to uphold the vote, no matter what party, no matter what demographics, no matter what state. Only Congress should declare war. It doesn't matter which bush.
Well, there's no question, but
We never
before you
declared
get
war
to
in
the
Vietnam. It goes
declaration
back
of
a
war,
ways, Korea too. So
I don't think
we were already there.
I don't think anybody wants to declare war anymore, because if you declare war, you're talking about destroying the planet as we know it. The weaponry that is readily available to everybody now says the results are going to be a destruction of the planet, and nobody wishes to do that.
Thank you.
Identify yourself for the audience out there.
And this is directed to Mayor Brown. As an attorney and former elected official, it appears to be clear that the legal team for Michael Cohen has worked out a unique arrangement. We have no way of knowing what that arrangement might be. However, I'm hoping that you might give us some illumination on what those options could be for Michael Cohen, who pled guilty yesterday to multiple felonies, including his elections felony implicating the president, and how that might unfold.
Well, I think Mr. Cohen was trying desperately to find a way to avoid spending any time in jail, and his plea to the 5 or 6 items that will be the linchpin to his sentence, and then his announcement about his activities surrounding the 2 women that each received quite a handsome sum of money in return for silence during the course of the election campaign, and his willingness to say he did it for the person that Will identified earlier, is all part of his trying his best to extract out of Robert Mueller and his whole operation some consideration. I don't think Mueller cares anymore about Cohen. Mueller is an interesting guy. Nobody has heard from him since he started representing
Nothing.
nothing.
Radio
no,
silence.
You don't even know if he's still alive. Literally, you don't. You really don't. And it's interesting because he walked into my office when I became mayor of San Francisco. My staff said, "Oh, there is somebody here from the Justice Department." Where is the back door? How many?
No.
And he said, only one. Robert, I said, well, send him in. So they sent him in. He wanted me to put in a word with Diane because he had been offered a new position and it required Senate confirmation. And I knew of his reputation and what have you. And he only wanted to make sure that if I was asked, I would honestly say what I thought about him. Well, I said, I think I'm positive about you since you have not indicted me. I think you've exercised great judgment. He is an unusual human being. I do not believe that he perceives himself as needing the person that pleaded guilty yesterday named Cohen, because I do not believe that he is after President Trump. He is really after the truth as it relates to how elections are conducted in this country, and he's willing to let the rest of us determine what should happen to anybody who's interfered with that process. Cohen is trying to say, I can ensure that Trump will be gone. That would not impress Mueller. Mueller would be more interested in any information that he would have that would help us elevate how we manage elections, not how we get rid of Trump.
So
We are out of time.
Mayor Brown, one quick question.
Very,
just a
very,
very
very, very
quick follow-up.
quick.
I know you know Lanny Davis, and if you were representing Michael Cohen and you wanted a legal instrument,
We don't have time for this question.
Sorry, we got to go. We got to tie it in.
Hard out.
Well,
on
let
the
me
radio
assure you,
news
if
at
I
top of the
represented
hour.
Cohen, I'd get my fee in advance.
That answers it. Will Durst, Willie Brown, The Will and Willie Show, Jon Diaz from the Chronicle. I'm producer and moderator Paul Wells. Thank you, Orchard Hotels.
Thank you, Orchard Hotel. Thank you, audience members of the Will and Willie Show.
Made wonderful pasta. Thanks for bringing it by. Catch you in September. See you then.